and how do we record what you called Hibernate mapping file. So, and we even try to create a table. We even try to create and give me 1 second. Yeah. Yeah, we even try to create our own table, and we created our object map, and we conveyed Hibernate like what is the relation table should be, and Hibernate took care of creating the table and inserting the data, whatever the row that you requested for. So in order to create HBM2 DDL configuration should be, you need to configure smartly your HBM2 DDL configuration in Hibernate CFG file. As a create or update, whatever it is, as I suggested you guys, like always, it's good to have an update. And then you need to provide all your schema details. So basically we got to know how do we insert using save method. Know where we wrote a single SQL query, right? This is one way of doing it. So there are a couple more operations we need to do, right? This is like insert, simple insert. Student save operations. We need so let's go back to this site, like what and all the different operations. Basically you do 4 operations, right? Anything like select, delete, update, insert. So for those things, so insert a record, update a record, delete a record, select a record. So for insert record, what and all options you have? You can use save, and you can use persist, or you can use save or update. So there are 3 operations that you can do. So if you want to get the primary key of the inserted object, then go for save. So this method will return you the primary key that inserted. So if you go back here, here the Raj primary key is 13 and Shiva primary key is 25. You getting my point? So yeah, persist is if you don't care about what kind of return type it is going to provide. If you doesn't worry about the return type that it is going to provide, then you just use persist. And there is another option, save or update. So if you use save on, if you use save operation on ID 13 again, if you try to insert one more time 13, what will happen? You will get a primary key violation error. But if you use save or update in those scenarios, what it will do, it will first looks into the database. Is there any record with this primary key available or not? If the primary key is not available in the database, then it will insert it. If the primary key with the record that you want to insert is already available in the database, then it will update the record. What does it mean? Like if some, let's say if you now you try to insert 13 and Shiva. Okay, so if 13 Shiva and you want to change Oracle, and if you try to insert using save object, it will give primary key or violation error. But if you use save or update method, what it will do, it will update this same record with Shiva and Oracle. Okay, so that is the other method. Let me show it to you quickly. Okay. So this is the save method. 13 is already there, right? So let's do quickly. Let me run this program. Why did I select run on server? Java. You got duplicate key value violation, unique constraint shouldn't primary key. So what does it mean? So you record with 13 is already there and you are inserting again. So let me try with something else, right? A, B, C, D. Let me insert. So error with, if you are trying to update a record with this new name for the same record, it is giving error because when you are using save method. Let me try to use, instead of save, I'll use save or update. Same thing, everything is as is. I'll use save or update. Let's see what will happen. See, no errors at least here. If I go back here and run the query, see, Raj will be gone with ABCD with the same 13 record. And if you look at here, what it will do, when you save or update, first it will select query and then it will update the database. Make sense? Save operations are done. So next operation is update operation. Let me show it to you. In this student update operations, what we need, all we need is, we don't need this, everything is going to be same, and we don't need this. Okay, so there are how many options? There are two options. Update method is there, and another one is merge is there. Update, another one is merge. So let me show it to you how it works. So now I'm going to update record, right? It's very well known. Now I am updating the record, not inserting the record, right? So I'm going to update with D, E, F, G, the record that is there. So if I use, there are what and all options that I have. Yes dot session dot update student object. Let's go back and see what will happen. So it updated successfully. It updated successfully. So there is another option is there, merge. Okay, there is another option called merge. I will say I'll run again. So there are another option is merge. There is a method called merge option. XYZ. Okay, nice. So then why do they have two methods? Right? Next question that comes into our mind is, why do they have the two methods if you have already update is there? Why do they come up with merge? So there is slight difference between merge and update. What are the difference? If you use update, say simple way, if you use merge, irrespective of the situation that you are in, okay, whatever the things that you are doing, whichever the scenarios that you are executing, when you use merge, no matter what, it will update into the database. But update is little different. What it will do, if your session contains already the update record, then update doesn't work. Okay, if your session if your session contains already that updated record, update doesn't work. What does it mean? Let me show it to you. At least by the time you guys got little bit idea, like, what is this is session factory, and you can create as many sessions as you want. In that sessions, S1, S2, and in that sessions you can begin transactions, like you can do one transaction, you can do two transactions together, so that will happen in a unit, transaction 1, transaction 2, another unit, 3 and 4 operations. So this is how the structure will be there, right? So you will get session factory from configuration CFG file, and from session factory you will get the session, from session you will get the transactions, and then you would operate whenever you use the save or update save or update and save, merge all these reports, it will go to the database and update it, right? So let's say this is the session I am going to explain, because session factory you guys understand where it fits, right? In that session, student record, std1 record, you taken a transaction 1, okay, in this transaction block you modified this student update record, you are planning to update this std1, and in transaction 2 you started another transaction where you trying to modify std1 again and trying to update it. If you use update here, as you already modified one here available, before committing this, if you try to update again that record, what it will do, it will throw an error, it will give you an error. But if you use merge here, if you use merge method, it doesn't throw, it will make sure all the proper record get updated. Okay, so if you are not confident what kind of data that you have, then better to go for merge. Okay, so let me show you the difference. You have a record, so like I said, update doesn't work, right? So what I'm going to do, update, or let's say I'll use merge first, okay, for the transaction, and then what I will do, transaction dot commit. Okay, next one is these are together, and I will get another transaction tx1 equal to session dot begin transaction. Okay, then what I will do, s dot update std. What I want to update is, I'll modify the object std dot set course to 0. Okay, and then what I'm going to do, update and then transaction dot commit. So what I'm doing here, same record, a 13 record. First what I did, I created a transaction and I conveyed merge it, and I closed the transaction. From the same session, I opened another transaction and I am modifying the same record std with course changing and trying to update it, and then I'll committing it. Okay, this one is tx1. Sorry. Okay, let me see what happens. Before saving, I'm trying to do twice kind of thing. So I got an error. A different object with the same identifier was already associated with the session. What does it mean? Just try to sense it, okay? This is the session we opened. In that we taken the transaction and we have a student object. Okay, student object with record 13 and course as Java. Course as Java. Okay. So in this transaction, you started this transaction and you modified, I mean, you are trying to update this record into the database within this transaction using merge. And again you begin another transaction within the same session. You trying to modify Java to some XYZ course and trying to update it using the update method. What happens is this update couldn't able to identify the changes that are happening, but merge has the capability to identify the changes that are happening between the transactions in simple way. Okay, so now you got an error, right? So if in order to work, what I will do, simple way, I'll do this merge. Let's see what happens now. I used both places merge. I shouldn't see an error. Yep, see, it updated in the first when it runs here, it updated these two, and when this one happens, it updated again. So the record with B GGG inside should be there. GGG will be there. Make sense? So we're done with student update operations. Nice. Another one is select operation. Any table you can do the same, okay? But table structure changes. Table is going to be same all the time, right? So next challenge we may have, like, how do we manage relations, all this thing. That is something we will discuss. So this is like what you call select operations. In select operations, you don't need a record, right? We are selecting a record from the database. For better readability, what I'm going to do, I mean, while explaining, using the ABCD name is confusing, right? So I'll use proper names, okay? And in order to generate ID, before getting into select, let me tell you one more thing. In order to ID, right, you don't remember all the time what is the IDs are there, and ID should be unique. Agreed? So how do we know the record is already there or not? So basically you will try to insert. If you get an error, then you change the ID and then again insert. This is painful process, right? If there is any functionality available already which will take care of this, then that makes our life easy, right? So that kind of functionality is already available, is nothing but all you need to do here in your Hibernate mapping file. All you need to do is exhausting. Which one we can take? There are different options we have. I'll just take easy one so that our life might look simple. So in order to generate automatically, what you need to do, you will need to convey how the ID is supposed to be generated. You need to convey to whom? Hibernate I have an ID which is a primary key. Use your logics. There is one logic is native. One logic is native. I'll go through the differences of native. There are bunch of operations, bunch of primary key generators are there. Automatically they will generate for you. Assigned, increment, sequence, identify, native, foreign, elo, sequence, elo, custom generator. So these are the different one: assigned, increment, sequence, identify, native, foreign, elo. These are the different algorithms that has been there from Hibernate, which will generate primary key for you. Make sense? Okay, so one of them is native. So I'm going to use native for now. We'll see what are the differences between those two. So from now onwards, as we are using auto generator for ID, so I don't need to, while saving it, I don't need to provide ID. It will automatically save it with the new ID. Okay, so first time I'm going to save with Shiva. Okay, let me go back and show it to you. So you can see Shiva ID number 1 generated. So let me try with Kumar Scala. Let me Rajesh with Pi, and then Santosh with Node.js. Okay, let's go back and see now. Okay, see, automatically it will generate these numbers. You don't need to. Okay, nice. Now come back to select operation. There are two ways you can select. Simple way of selecting operations, you can do it two ways. If you want to select, when you select, what you will select entire record, right? You will select entire record. If you will select complete record of Kumar or Santosh, or complete record you will select, right? So for those kind of operations, okay, you don't need, you are fetching the data from the database, so you don't need this. And these lines are typical, right? Across every time you do something, these lines are typical for us. Okay. So in between the transaction, what you need to do, you need to select. How do you select? So you know you're going to get student object, and from session student object, s dot get off you need to provide what is the table name in the sense, in our class, object name, student dot class. Okay, which row you want to select, let's say I want to select Kumar record 2. It is giving error because you need to cast it. Get will return object, but you are capturing into student. So you need to downcast the object into student. So you need to downcast the object into student. Okay, nice. So now you got student object from the database. Whether you got it or not, we'll see. Record from database. So that you can see clearly. Here we simply call student, because student, when I call like this, student dot, it will say student dot toString. Student dot toString I implemented already, right? So it will display all the record data that is there in that record. Okay, let me run. This is the method. There is two methods available. One is get, another, so forgot to tell you, there are two methods to get the data from the database. One is get, another one is load. Okay, so I'm trying to show you in get. You got the record, right? So it went and ran the select query, record from the database, ID 2, name Kumar, date is this thing, course is Scala, marks. If I try to call 3, you will get the Rajesh record. Nice. So there is another way to fetch the record is load. So this also fetched the record Rajesh. Right? So there are two methods. Two methods will take object and then what is the ID that you are looking for. Nice. So here is the interesting challenge that we have, right? Why do they have two methods now? Why do they have two methods? Basically what happens is, if we use get here, as soon as this line triggers, okay, in get case, let me write it here and explain to you. As soon as this line triggers, you can see a database query. You will see a database query here. As soon as this line triggers, you will see a database query, which means when you call s.get, it immediately goes and get it back to you. Okay, but in case of s.load, at this line the SQL query is not executing. At this moment, that is the only option that you have. So if you want to display student dot, sorry, that idiot I did a typo, so get marks. So it will display only marks for now, but we have a lot of other options. Even though you are displaying you only marks, you only required marks, but you are fetching complete row in this case, and then you are getting only marks, right? But you want to fetch only marks. That option is using criteria queries, that which we are going to discuss later. For now, there is the option. Okay. So there are two options. So one is load and one is get, right? So get is something, as soon as this line, while executing in Java, as soon as this line triggers, it will go and execute the database and get the record for you. But in case of load, it doesn't execute record SQL query here. It doesn't execute SQL query here. As soon as you ask, right here, as soon as you ask here, the query will be executed. See, in simple way, let me prove it. Okay, so Let me show it to you. Okay, this is so basically what I'm trying to say now. SQL query doesn't go to the database even though you asked for it. I'm saying it doesn't go to the database. Let me show it to you. You don't see any queries here. See, it doesn't went to the database. When it will go to the database, let me copy paste this guy. Now right, let's run the program. You will see the SQL query. See, you will see the SQL query and marks here. Okay, what if I marks for, if you ask for marks, you got it. So what if you try to ask for get ID, whether the SQL query execute? No, you don't see the SQL query. You see the record, but you don't see the SQL query. What if you ask for get name? Okay, SQL query is there. It is going to the database and getting the Rajesh. So what does it mean? So load is something doesn't go to the database as and when you wrote this dot session dot load. It will go to the database when you try to fetch non-primary key. SQL query triggers in the session.load case is when you try to extract non-primary key value, then only it will go to the database and fetch it for you. Make sense? But let's see. What I'm trying to say is, irrespective of whether you're fetching or not, if you, as soon as you ask for it, you will see a record here for get case. See, it went and fetched, irrespective of whether using it or not. So what does it mean? There are differences. So if you use get, no matter what, it will go immediately and get it. So this is eager loading. And s dot load is lazy loading. They call it as, this one as eager loading, that one as lazy loading. So that is the difference mainly, and I defined some difference. In interview questions, they ask, like if they talk about Hibernate, this is the typical question that they will ask you: what is the difference between load and get? So get is something will be called whenever you trigger the get method. Select query will be triggered whenever you trigger the get method, and then eager loading, and it guaranteed the record. It loads immediately and the record will be there available immediately. What if there is a no record? Then what will happen? Let me say we don't have 99 record number, right? ID is 99, we don't have. Let me say what will happen when you use get. What the fuck? Yeah, when you try to access, right? Yeah, SYS OUT is null, right? So std. If you try like this, you will get null. And if you try to access something, you will get null pointer exception because this record is not there. But what if I use load? You will get no row with the given identifier exist. Okay, that's what we wrote here. If you use whenever you try to access non-primary key, then only load will call. So you don't get any null pointer exception, but here in your case, it will get a null pointer exception because you try to access values on the null. It's a load is a lazy loading. Only when you try to access the data, then only it will go and fetch it. But here is eager loading. Get is eager loading. Okay, nice. there are, we know SQL, right? As of now, we know. Hibernate says you don't need to know the SQL in order to write the Hibernate programs, so that you know how to connect to the database. But still, it supports query kind of language using HQL, not SQL. It supports HQL with CRUD operations. So to save some time, as I have all the scenarios here very well mentioned, can we go through like this? If you guys really want, I can do the program. Okay. So this is update, this is read, data update language, data read language. So HQL, how do you write the HQL, right? That is important. Need to write queries based on your bean class and its attribute. So execute update is insertion and update. So you will write a simple like, insert into student new, student, I mean whatever the student class, and student ID, name, date, and then come on, and then you provide select from student table. So what will happen? This is the query you will execute, insert. You getting my point? And here you wrote like session dot create query, just like session dot get. We have a query, create query, and pass HQL. It will create the query, and then you read the create query dot execute. It will update the records in the table. Are you guys following? Yeah. Just to try to see these 4 scenarios with the HQL, for some reason